All right, we're live. And in just a few minutes, we'll get started, but we can just chat for another minute. I'll make sure we get everything in place here.
Yes. And you all know that I use Karin's seasonal journals. So,
Oh, do you really?
yeah, I do. Yeah, I've been using those for a while, 2 years, Karin.
Oh,
That's so awesome. I love that.
You know, you go in and out. Sometimes, you lose your practice. So this is going to inspire me to get back on my practice. Yeah.
Good. Okay.
And I participated in one of Karin's journaling challenges. And I think that's actually what led us to say, oh my gosh, we need to have you on the People Strategy Forum.
Yeah.
But, people need this.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I actually just put the journal resource guide that I was, which is based on, so it's a structure, okay? Because that's part of, so if people want to structure reminders of what to do in a journal, and it's based on, my journal. So.
Nice. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and get things kicked off. You could just one moment as I start the multicast here.
Got a lot of steps to get in place. We want to make sure we do it right.
That's right. Okay. You're live.
Is the chat open?
I'll make sure it's open right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead, Jules.
All right, perfect. All right, well, welcome everyone to the People Strategy Forum. My name is Jules, and I'm really excited to have you all here, whether you are coming to us for the 50th time or the very first time. Welcome, welcome. The People Strategy Forum, we do this each and every week. We bring a panel of expert hosts, and then we also bring a guest speaker. So we cover all types of topics about leadership, HR, talent management, you name it. We've got it. We cover the topic. And today we are actually welcoming back a previous guest because we loved her so much the last time she was on. So we were like, we have to bring her back. So before we introduce everybody, I just want to let you know that if you do have any questions, any comments, feedback, we love to hear from you. So that's why we open up our chat. So if you have any questions throughout, write them into the chat and we'll make sure we get those answered for you. And we are streaming on multiple platforms at the one time. We're covering as many bases as we can. So if you do have any questions and you're coming to us from a different platform, write those questions in there as well. We always get back to you after the session as well. And maybe you can't tune into the Zoom, that's okay. We're also in podcast form, audio form, so you can listen to us in the car while you're dropping off the kids, wherever. So we're very accessible. All right, so to introduce the panel I mentioned, we are going to start with Shah. So Shah is a former HR professional turned entrepreneur. She runs multiple businesses, is a career coach and consultant. We also have Wendy, who works with the team at Comp Team. She specializes in talent management and development. She's very familiar with the TMA method as well. And we also have Sam, and Sam is the person who brings us this forum each and every week. He is also the founder and CEO of Comp Team, and he's a compensation expert, reward strategist, and we may have Sumit and Howard hop on. We'll see in a moment. But I want to also introduce you to our fabulous guest speaker. Hopefully you tuned into her last time she was here. If you didn't, you can always go back and listen to the podcast or watch the session on YouTube. But we do have Dr. Karin Lubin joining us today. Oh, Sumit, you are here. I'm so sorry. I must have, and Howard, you're all here. You know what? This Zoom screen throws me off sometimes. So sorry. Let me go back real quick. So we have Howard, who is also a team member at Comp Team. He is a compensation advisor, reward strategist, and consultant. And we also have Sumit, who also is a consultant, HR strategist, helps different companies with various areas of HR practices, from leadership, organization, strategy, and lots more. So sorry about that, guys. Now I can see you on the screen here. Let me take it back to Karin. So Karin is the founder of Quantum Leap Consulting and Coaching. She has teamed up with her husband on that business. And what she does, she helps professionals and entrepreneurs really become greater by going inside deeper through coaching, training. She has workshops, and she has her own seasonal journals, which actually Wendy was just telling us she has all of the journals. So I'm excited to hear a little bit about how that's helping her. And we are talking about the how to effectively journal for leaders. So Karin, it is so good to have you back. I loved the last time you were here. So I can't wait to see what we've got here today. And welcome back to the forum.
Oh, thank you so much. You know, it's so fascinating. When I started creating these journals, which was about 6-7 years ago, I was working with small business entrepreneurs, and I would ask them, you know, how do you feel? How are you doing? And they just looked at me like, what? Seriously, they looked at me with, you know, okay, they could say good, they could say bad, but there was the communication, the words that we want to use to kind of stretch out and embellish how we're feeling, so that then we can communicate more effectively, which as a small business owner, we all know that is really important, right? Because we want to be able to communicate effectively. So journaling, to me, if I may, I'd love, Jules, just to start off with the benefits of why we might want to journal. Is that okay? All right. And Sam, I just want to say, Sam, your team is phenomenal. And I just want to put out a shout out to anyone who's listening, that the comp team is definitely a different group of people. They are so much more multi-layered. You know, they're not just doing one thing, they're doing many levels of support for businesses. I just think the whole concept of what you do, Sam, and everyone, Char, Wendy, Sumit, and Howard, and Jules, I mean, really, you all stand out as unique and different. And I just want to put out a shout out that you guys have to check out Comp Team. I mean, really amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We are different and unique, but thank you.
Yes, good. I'm glad you know that. So let me just say why journaling is important. And I'm going to say this first for you as an individual, but then I want to bring it to leaders. Okay. So the first thing about why we journal is to really manage stress. Okay. Because sometimes, I don't know about you, but sometimes there's a feeling of anxiety, a little overwhelm, like you're too busy, you know, like you're like, trying to scramble. And so journaling can actually help you manage stress. The other thing is that you can, when you download whatever is in your head, I don't know about you, but sometimes I can think about something and it goes around and around in my head a little too much. Anybody have that experience? Okay, yeah. All right, good. Well, this way, when you download it and you put it onto paper, and I really believe that paper and pen is helpful. You know, when you use a pen, that's your left brain. When you write it down and write down your feelings, that's your right brain. So you're doing this whole brain approach. And when you write it down, you get to see things from a different perspective. It's like suddenly things are not in your face. It's like you have a little bit more of a separation and you can see what it is that is going on for yourself. So a different perspective can be helpful. And you guys, anytime you want to say something, just unmute and shout out, okay? Because I'm like,
yeah,
no,
yeah, no problem. I was just thinking that, Karin, because we just had I think it was Josh Boley last week on the forum, and he is he's the CEO of Mindstone, and he was going through how important it is to continue learning and so forth. And one of the things, the tools that he brought up, he says, you know, at the end of the day, I take all of my learnings of that day and I put it in my journal and I write that down. And that's a way of being able to have it solidify in his mind. He can come back to it, revisit, and refresh himself on those concepts and so forth. And so he finds it very powerful. So yeah,
that's great, and I'm so glad that someone else is doing that. That's the third thing that I was going to talk about, which is understanding, reflecting, self-awareness. You know, the reflection that you do is so important, because then you can take that and then bring it to the next day, right? And the other part is, you know, when we're managing stress, then that means that we're also boosting our immune system, because health is so important. You were just saying, Sam, earlier that, you know, health is wealth, and part of health is our mental health, right? So physical health is very, you know, extremely important, but so is the mental. And I actually think they go hand in hand.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, and that's one of the things that's, I mean, right now, when we're so focused on just when we talk about health, we often thinking about the physical. But you know, I think now more than ever, that what the past 2 years have taught us is that how important mental health is, and there's a lot of people out there that are struggling with mental health right now in a variety of different forms, and either just as being as just a, you know, stressed or overstressed to significant issues. And so it's something that can definitely help us.
And we get bombarded left and right, you know, from you know, media, social media. You know, it's sometimes really hard to kind of, you know, turn it all off and disassociate yourself and just think.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's a very, you know, it's so interesting. You're each now saying the next thing that I was going to say, which is to slow down, because Howard, you're absolutely right on. You know, I'm reading a book called Rest is Resistance. Really good book to read. And this woman, Tricia Hersey, talks about the grind culture. We in capitalist society are very much really looking at how we have to work, right? We're constantly, you know, like we never stop. Like our bodies have become this industrialized, you know, society that we live in. Our bodies are now not even seen as human bodies. It's like, how much can you push? Now, and I know as a leader, when I was in public education, I remember pushing my teachers, the employees. Oh man, I wish I had not done that, but I did. And I learned the hard way. So to take time for journaling, which is like 15 minutes, okay? And we all have 15 minutes. Instead, like Howard, you know, rather than looking at social media, hey, guess what? Open your journal and reflect on, and that will actually totally boost your immune system, and basically, you know, you'll breathe, right? Which is so important. And I think the last thing about journaling is that you allow for creativity to flow. You know, when we slow that moment down, you know, it's like taking a shower. You know, sometimes a download comes and you're like, oh yeah, or you're outside walking in nature, or whatever it is that you all do to take care of yourself, slow it down, give yourself a break. That's, I think, really, really important. But let me just talk about how journaling can be really effective for leaders. Okay, and many of you have heard of lots of different leaders, and you just talked about one, Sam. But Robin Sharma is my go-to leader, and he has been I don't know, I just love his work. But he wrote this book that I can't say enough about, The Leader Who Had No Title. He's written other books, but he is the one who says that to him, journaling is a best practice. And he actually says there's groundbreaking research now done on elite performance and ultra achievement is now confirming that journaling on a regular basis boosts mental focus, increases self-confidence, elevates your mental attitude, and increases the level of happiness that you feel. Now, don't you think that's going to be helpful as a leader? Well, heck yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And he actually says, I'm just taking a quote from him because really, you all want to check out Robin Sharma, but he says, I write in a journal daily. This extraordinary ritual has revolutionized my mindset, transformed my heart set, and generally influenced my life exponentially. And, you know, there's people from Harvard Business Review, you know, they talk about extraordinary leaders are people who actually journal. Extraordinary leaders. And that's coming from, you know, Forbes. I saw your article, Sam, that you shared. All of that is so powerful when you get that you just take 15 minutes, not a lot of time, but we often don't think we have that time. It can completely change your attitude. You can see things. So if I may, do you have any questions, Sam, or any thoughts on that, or anybody?
No, I think it's just to add to that. I mean, it's, you know, just taking that time to take a break. And you're talking about, you know, the industrial complex or the
Yes.
grind culture.
Yes.
And that's the thing that's come to head right now. In the HR world, there's a lot of talk around the quiet quitting and these things as people are stepping back. From that grind culture in a bit, but I think that making that very purposeful and it doesn't mean that we have to drop our productivity. In fact, as we take time to pause and arrange our thoughts, we stop stumbling forward, right? And we have we can take things in a much more rationalized way and reflect and take a purposeful way forward, right?
Yeah, actually, I just received an email from a business. It's a graphic design company, and it was very cool because what the founder of the company said is that they are now doing 4 days a week instead of 5, and he said he's doing that to give his team more time off so that they can actually do the things that they love, which includes any other passions that they might have, but also downtime. And he said that when they come back for the 4 days, they are more productive, they get more done, and they feel better and have a better attitude. And this is a guy in his late 40s who's doing this. And I was so impressed. I mean, I really thought, fantastic, somebody is listening. Right. To his people, yeah. Right? And to recognizing that the grind culture isn't necessarily the best for humans. You know, if we're yeah, go ahead, Wendy.
I'll add on, which is I think about this phrase we used to say in marketing, which is like it's sometimes it's the white space that's really important. And so then to relate that to the way we learn, you know, it's the integration that is so key. And kind of what you were talking about, it's like when you're in the shower, it's when you're taking a walk, all of a sudden you have those where you're actually integrating. You know, we can sit in class all day, but it's that time outside of class where our brain starts to, and our heart starts to put everything together. And we start to integrate and draw more connections. And then that's when the really good stuff comes. And I was going to say, you know, my husband, Wayne, he worked for a grocery chain where you were lucky if you got 1 day off a week, and you usually got 2, but they were never together. And I saw how he just could never get caught up. So I love that this guy saw, you know what, we can be just as productive in 4 days as 5, and actually we can be better. So I think that is huge.
Yeah, yes, me too. And I actually think, you know, when you're talking about the insights, kind of circling back to what Sam was saying, is that, you know, you really, when you have a moment to reflect, you actually get greater insights. You get to actually also then focus on what your goals are for the day. Like, so what is important today? Right? And you get to integrate whatever it was from the day before into perhaps the goals that you have today. And the journals that I have created are seasonally based. Okay. And the reason I did that is because I believe that seasons give us a lot for metaphors. And, you know, there's a beautiful metaphor that we can look at when we look at each season, for example. Many people are also connected to nature, like the outdoors. So I also took that as another way to connect to something larger than yourself. Because if we think we're the only one, that can feel really isolating and, you know, very disconnected. So nature can be just a great example. Doesn't mean that's for everyone, but I will say I know a lot of people who seem to find nature as stress reducing, right? There's a lot of eco psychology now based on therapies, forest bathing. I mean, there's tons of research now that shows that nature is very effective in reducing stress and again, helping people to get greater insights, release those old thoughts that maybe aren't serving them, and you kind of calm down and you're getting good exercise, right? So you're,
Right.
there's a good thing going on there.
So Karen, you said it's something there I want to dig into.
Yes, please.
You said forest bathing. So
Yes.
can you tell us what that is?
Sure. Forest bathing was started in Japan, and it is a process where you are being guided through a forest, and it's a very slow walking, kind of walking meditation, where you're being guided through on a forest path. And there's moments where you're connecting with the nature around you, and doing different things that it's now actually so popular. It's now in the United States. I mean, there's a lot of people who actually are forest bathing guides.
That's
So
great.
yeah, so but that was based on in Japan on science and research done to show that they wanted to keep their people healthy, because a lot of people, now think about Japan for a minute.
Yeah.
They work very hard, very little breaks, constantly working. They, I worked with a lot of Japanese people, and they go from 7 to 10 every day. So forest bathing was really a very important tool to help people because of the stress and anxiety that people were feeling.
So so to clarify, that's a meditation process, or is that actual physical going in a forest?
It's a physical going in the forest.
Okay. So like picking on Sumit, I think he lives in the city, right, Sumit? So I don't know if Sumit, do you have a lot of forest access in India?
It's a concrete jungle that I live in, so yeah, concrete forest bathing is unfortunately what happens.
Got it.
I was just curious.
Yeah. So that, again, there's something to that. And now if you go to, starting in Japan, they were looking at their culture and what they do with, they have parks, they have temples with a lot of natural, forest trees around them. And I'm sure Sumit in India, there's that as well, but it might be a different beauty, and it might be a different form of, instead of forest bathing, maybe it's just looking at your temple and walking around the temple. I mean, it could be a completely different experience. But again, without going into a spiritual place, because I believe nature can be a spiritual experience, there's something about connecting to something larger. And I'll just leave it at that. Okay. And then seasons, I believe seasons show us resiliency of the earth. Okay. So now we're in fall. So we've just had this harvest, leaves are falling. What are the leaves doing? Well, it's like starting to create compost, right? It's going to build the soil. It's getting colder because it's going to be winter, at least in the northern hemisphere, right? So then in winter, there's this opportunity to really go within, because that's what the earth is doing. That's what nature is doing, just naturally, the plants, animals, everybody. So why aren't we doing that? So how can we do that? And then you look at spring, and then there's things, starting to, seeds that we're planting. So this is all metaphorical as well. What seeds might you want to plant? What ideas, what, creative projects might you want to start? And then in the summer, it's kind of like, boom, you're blasting out, and then you're harvesting in the fall again. Harvesting what you have, your projects. Okay, so I'm talking like as we're a team, there's this natural progression that happens. Does it happen exactly fall and winter and all this? Not always. And it's still this natural progression of how things ideas get planted, and then we move on them, expand on them, etc. So questions about that?
I think that's a great metaphor, and sharing a little bit of personal experience, what I've figured is, despite living in the city, having somebody along who's got a completely different perspective really helps you in unlocking the beauty. So I've got a daughter who's turning 5 soon, and I really enjoy going out for walks with her because she'll spot something like, oh, look, there's such a pretty caterpillar right there. Or she'll make me stop, bend, and smell the flowers and
Oh, sweet.
look at, I mean, it could be things you'd never ever even think of noticing, like look at the patterns on the leaf. It could be a different species of bird, whereas if you're just out walking the dog, you might just be looking at your phone or be worried about what's going to happen in the next client meeting. So I think having someone who is very different from you in terms of mindset, in terms of maybe experience, could help. And I mean, to use the example you were giving, so in a sense, my daughter's my forest bathing guide.
Yes, I love that. Oh, now that is the sweetest thing. So she's kind of like your the opportunity to get out of the headspace of whatever, you know, the work thing. And now she is helping you move into more of an open place, a more maybe authentic place in that moment with her, which then allows for that inspiration, for that, you know, slowing down, all of these things that are really important, and that I like to think of also as how journaling can really support you as well. You know, there's many forms of journaling. There's journaling with blank, no, you know, pages, nothing in it. The journal that I have created, which, you know, there are 4 journals for each season. They're directed, so you're prompted very specifically. So since you don't have, you know, Sumit's daughter, you know, to take you around, I have in a journal certain things that are highlighted to guide you and take you through a process to get you to all the items of the benefits, really, of why you journal, right? Because, you know, if you're a leader, you want to think about, so, you know, what was the impact of this? So there's a question in the journal about that, right? So you look at, there's certain things that I take people through to then also give you, at the end of the day, an opportunity to reflect on what was the things that you want to take with you. And, you know, what do you notice that you're maybe not paying attention to? And what are the things you're paying attention to? And why are you not paying attention to those things? Take a notice, right? Because maybe that's a hard thing. And again, we are humans, whether we're a leader as a, in our family, you know, whether we're in nonprofits, whether we're in sales teams, wherever we are leaderful. And so I always like to think of wherever we are giving ourselves the opportunity to demonstrate leadership in our own lives and around us, because we're modeling it all the time. Whatever you do as a team, you're modeling to one another, right? And to everyone listening. You know, you model consistently, whether you know it or not. So you might want to really think about what you're modeling. Like, and so let's talk about resiliency as a leader, because I don't know about all of you, but, you know, we talked about this grind culture, the industrial complex. It's it can, in HR especially, I see a lot, you know, that silent resignation or, you know, disappearing from your job is because there isn't a built-in sense of resilience. So we have to do it ourselves. And then we have to have better boundaries. Boundaries.
That's very good. I like that you said that. That's very important.
Yes, and so I believe that there's many qualities to building resilience. One of them is being authentic. When I talked about an intuitive leader, remember in another conversation that we had, one of them was being real. So being authentic, I believe, through journaling is also so important. Like you write down what's really going on for yourself. Then there's the self-reflection piece. There's the compassion piece for yourself, because sometimes, or maybe for another, right? It could be a relationship with some form of spiritual guidance. And again, this is for each of us, it's going to be different. Okay, but these are literally qualities to help you build inner resilience. Connection. When you journal, who are you connecting to? Yourself. Most importantly, right? And I don't know about you, but before, when I was probably at the peak of my career, I didn't take the time. I wish I had. I really wish I had, because I'm learning from past experience of what didn't work for me and what now does work for me. And it's very different. So connection to myself through journaling is super important, which also, once I connect to myself through my journaling process and get clear about what's going on for me, like if I feel agitated and I don't have a clue why, and I'm, talking to all my team members like, like this, like, what the heck, what's going on? So if I actually checked in, wrote, and figured out, oh, I'm agitated because, something happened in my family and I'm really upset and I don't know what to do and then I go, oh, okay, got it. So that's what's going on. I kind of check in with my body. It's right here in my chest. And, just noticing these little pieces can actually then allow you to relax more and more. And then I figured out what the situation was. And now I can figure out what is my action that I want to take. Really key, right? Because often we don't go to that place, but that's, as an effective leader, you want to know what's the action that you're going to take. So for me, it might be, I actually have a conversation with somebody in my family, or maybe I just tell somebody in my sales team or my HR department, like, wow, I'm just not having a good day. And this is not my best day today. I'm going to do the best I can. And you just get there's the authenticity part, right? And then you move on. What are some other things I want to say? Okay, so taking action's a big one. Gratitude's another thing for building resilience. And taking action, that's resiliency, by the way. Trusting, so gratitude, in the journal that I have at the very bottom, there's like 6 little lines, and it's, what are you grateful for? And Robin Sharma, Leader with No Title, he does gratitudes, and he's a big believer in gratitudes. Why? Because you're looking at the positive, you're looking at the solutions, you're looking at not what's wrong, you're looking at what's right. And how many of us like to be with people who are always looking at everything that's wrong?
Yeah, it's a bummer. Like the down. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's for sure. Yeah. So trusting your intuition, I think as a leader, we don't talk about intuition as much. And, again, when I talk about intuitive leadership, that's a big part of listening to yourself. Because, and again, journaling, how do you listen to yourself? Well, you can have a conversation, but when you write it down, that's when you get a little bit of that separation, and you can go, oh, okay, that's what's going on. I am going to trust this and go, something's off with so-and-so. I feel that. I don't know what's going on. So my action is I'm going to check it out. So, hey, hi, Shar, how are you doing? Like, can I talk to you? I've noticed something. I feel every time I talk to you, you seem like withholding of something. Are you okay? Like, is everything okay? You just check it out. Communication, resiliency. That's how you build resiliency, inside and outside.
Well, it sounds like you need to be talking to me. I got a lot of stuff going on in my business right now, and I don't necessarily talk to everybody about it. But absolutely, as an HR executive and talent management strategist, it's a very precarious situation, because so much about what's going on in the organization, right? All the skeletons in the closet at all levels of the organization.
Mm-hmm.
You see the good, bad, and the ugly. But I often think, as an HR professional, we don't really have someone to talk to ourselves. I always felt frequently kind of on my own island. You know, your VP doesn't necessarily want to listen to the skeletons in the closets and the problems and the issues. As we always said, the VP isn't necessarily there. I too wish when I was, I have various peaks in my career, but at one of those times, I think, yes, I think your advice is absolutely spot on. I think having journaling would have helped me mentally deal with the situations. Since I could, you know, confidential information, I can't really share with anyone else. You know, I had a family member that still worked at the same hospital as me, certainly wasn't going to talk about the same issues going on with that individual, you know. And I also just want to echo what Sumit said. I think the seasons are fantastic. And I really think it's grounded. You know, I had some really stressful moments dealing with some major layoffs in my organization, and I was the head of those, and it was very heart-wrenching because I'm a very, you know, I have a lot of empathy. Finally just went to a pond that was at a park nearby. And just finally, the first time I did that in that 13-year career, to literally sit and look at the water and listen to the birds. So I love your philosophy. I think that would have been extremely helpful. And I know at the end, we're going to be asking you how to get your information, because I'd love to take a look at your journals.
Oh, great. Yeah, that would be wonderful. Good. Happy to. Let me just ask though, because what you just said, Shar, is really interesting to me. Yes, there's a place in which there is confidentiality. That's correct.
Right.
And so let's put that aside. We know that. But are we in control of everything?
No.
That's right.
Are we in control of everything?
No,
I
but
I felt like I was trying to solve world hunger half the time.
That's right. That's right. And when we feel like, now that's going to feel like we're on an isolated island. So are we in control of everything? That would be a heck no. We're not. We're never in control, ever, even though we have this facade. We're like kind of, since the pandemics, you know, 3 years ago starting, there's this veil that has slowly been kind of coming to the forefront that we are pushing aside. And we're recognizing we're really not in charge of everything.
Like we're not in charge of nature, right? We're not in charge of the earthquakes, so we're not in charge of the tsunamis and et cetera, and the forest fires that we're dealing with globally. So I think that's a great metaphor too. You know,
I think that's a really key point, Char, that you just mentioned, is understanding, you know, what I mean. If we're trying to fight Mother Nature, we're going to lose, right? So I like what Karin's saying. Her approach of thinking about our surroundings is super important. And we just think about, I mean, this happens in the workplace. I mean, if we're in a war zone, you know, that's going to impact us significantly, safety and how we act and so forth. And so we are creatures of our environment. If we're around hostile people, or if we're around giving people, you know, that's going to impact us. And so I think being very aware of our environment and I think even that process you mentioned, as far as the forest walking or forest, and what is it
bathing, called? Forest bathing.
Yes, where you're walking through that environment, and you're being very intentional about what you're seeing and experiencing through that. I think that is something that we can do just in our business world as well. The people around us, making sure that we understand, observe our people, seeing what they're going through, understand that they might be under tension, and exploring that to be more successful and how we are as a leader. So I think that's very insightful what you mentioned, Karin. Thank you.
Sure. And there's another word I'm going to just throw out there. It's called biophilia. It's a science. Okay. Biophilia is really understanding that there's an innate connection to all living things. And here's the gap, or the thing that is perhaps not serving us, is that we in our industrial capitalist society, you know, there's nothing wrong with capitalism, but the way we've industrialized it, that could be questioned a bit. Okay. And when I look at that, that's when I see the separation. We're in buildings often, right? We're disconnected. We're in little, cubby holes, right? And we are so connected from the outer world and even from each other and then from ourselves. And so this is why journaling, again, can be so effective, because we get to see, actually, as a leader, I'm not in charge of the what's going on with earthquakes and with the world that way. I'm not in charge of nature, and I'm not the general manager of the universe. Thank you, Janet Atwood. She's the one who said that to me once. And I was like, God, that is so right. When I, as a leader, wanted to know and understand everything, wow, that takes me out. So I still have that tendency. I'm not done with this completely. And I now find that when I really want to understand something, it's like I'm by myself. And so when I can say, hey, I could use a little help here. And maybe also if I'm feeling, I don't know, Shari, when you talked about your situation, to me, it's learning how to be more flexible and adaptable. Like I just had a group of 6 people. The weirdest thing happened. 3 of them couldn't make it. And then the internet with these other people was so messed up. We were all talking like, like it was this really weird thing happening. And I finally just said, you know what, folks, after a half hour, we're done. We're gonna change this. Like I was not going to force something, right? So,
Right.
I couldn't control what was happening, clearly. And I just said, hey, let's
Right.
another day. And everyone agreed and we're good. So
Well, I think of it, so I say this almost daily, when the catastrophes happen, when the storms happen, when the breakdowns happen with technology. My colleagues here will tell you that I talk a lot about my technology issues. But I also talk about what's called the silver lining, right? It's very common sense. I mean, there's always lessons to be learned from those breakdowns and issues that happen. And, another metaphor we talked about a lot is, when those firestorms happen and when those major critical events happen, guess what? Those are the things that plant the seeds, right? Those are the things that plant the seeds. And then we learn the lessons that we need to improve and change and adapt and modify to perhaps not only allow those issues to happen again, but be stronger, better together, working
Beautiful.
smarter and more effective.
Yeah.
And I really try to look for those even when I'm in the state of crisis, even with my businesses today. This world is going to be swirling, changing. Federal law is going to change the laws, the government, et cetera. All these things, outside factors are going to happen, and we have to adapt and modify. So what lessons are we going to learn from this, temporary shutdown, for example?
Right.
And
are you asking other people as well that question?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Oh,
I have a whole, in addition to comp team, which I learn a lot, and that's why I've enjoyed doing these forums. Oh yeah, I've got a whole bunch of people that are my tribe, as you call it, the tribe. Isn't that the big cliche term these days? And they all have their own advice, man. Everybody's kind of that side couch therapist.
Oh, okay. Well,
But
I
get nuggets of information from everyone's different point of
But
view.
I think that's great, and making sure that you have plenty of advisors and diverse advisors, right, from different walks of life and different experiences brings us to have that diversity brings us the best solutions. I think that is super
That's right. Although I have to say that, Sam, when I hear the word advice, I go, like I kind of cringe. So if I'm asking people for, ideas and wanting their feedback, that's very different than me just going up to you and saying, hey, Sam, you need to change this.
That actually, I have a question for you, because I was at a friend's house. We were working on a project with our business. It was kind of a critical issue. And her husband came out to the garage smoking a cigarette, and he was pacing. and he was venting. He's venting about his work, and I work 11-hour days, and it reminded me of my prior life, because I always said, bring me your issue and I have a tissue, was one of my inside HR jokes, which is kind of hokey, but seriously, every day I would have people come in and cry.
Yeah.
And and oftentimes they didn't want advice, they just wanted to vent, and they just wanted to talk. And obviously, as an HR person, I had ideas, and I was actually honored to be an HR person people wanted to talk to. That was a good thing. But, I thought, well, maybe I should change my career coaching strategy and just be a venting post. So people
what was
could
the
just
question?
I mean, do you think that's a good idea? I mean, of course I have lots of advice I call it HR from the inside out. But I think oftentimes people can't go home and vent to their spouses and their families and their dogs about all their stresses at work. And sometimes they just need someone to really vent to and talk it through, beyond, not just a therapist. You know what I mean? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, there's coaches, and there's
I guess that's called coaches.
and there's journaling. Journal. Seriously, I mean, I'm not joking. Journaling can, if that guy was pacing and smoking and really like stressed out, which it sounds like, to me, I'd be like, here's a journal.
Yeah, I have one right here.
Follow this, there you go. And if it's not somebody who's not as comfortable with journaling, then give them a guided or a prompted journal, directed journaling. If some people love to journal and have lots of time, or they just want to do their own thing, totally cool. I love that. Then let them have a blank book. I mean, maybe they just need to say, this sucks, this sucks, this sucks.
Yeah,
or whatever
seriously,
it is.
F this, F that.
Yeah,
and also, if you don't so the art of handwriting is actually disappearing, in my view, right? My handwriting is going down the tubes, and I actually know cursive. I'm so surprised compared to many. But you can also do it on word dictation now. I mean, even if you just kind of talk to yourself and have it transcribed on a document, if you prefer more of an auditory experiential thing. I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, instead of just writing.
So some people are going to be digitally oriented. I'm old school, and I also know that it supports the left and the right brain. Okay. And I'm all about the whole brain approach. I just put into the chat box some questions that you might want to be asking yourself, because again, I'm coming from intuitive leadership. So I'm looking at, there's 5 qualities of an intuitive leader. So what are some questions that you could be asking yourself? It could be on a regular basis. It could be on a weekly basis, whatever works. But when I talked about being real as an intuitive leader, so again, this is effective leadership here. You ask yourself, how am I real and transparent? Where can I be more in this, all areas of my life? Where could I be? So if there's confidentiality, clearly not maybe with your whomever, but here, yes, I could. And you find support systems. We are not meant to be on our own completely. The idea that we're individuals to the point of capital I in the United States, nothing's wrong with being an individual, but when we take it to the extreme, which is what I'm talking about, then I believe we isolate. Right? Sumit, did you want to say something?
I think I agree with the point about being old school and writing things out. So I don't claim to have the best handwriting, but recently I rediscovered a love for writing with a fountain pen.
Yes.
And I think it really slows me down, lets me deliberate a lot more. And it's almost as if you can feel the left and the right brain working in tandem. And I was also trying to look for the journal that I use. So I've been using, I don't know if you can actually see
I can't really see it. So put it up closer to your screen.
This is a guided journal based on the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Perfect. Yes.
And I think it helps. So it's got weekly guidance, and using it has definitely helped me be a lot more structured, and I often lose sense of time and structure. So it's good to keep myself disciplined while also being able to think ahead and be a little creative.
Yeah, that's great. Stephen Covey. Yeah, he's another great one for journaling. That's wonderful. Thank you for that. Wendy, did you want to say something?
I just wanted to show, and for our listening audience, I have all my pens in all my different colors. And I was going to say that, it's fun when you treat yourself to something like that. They're not expensive, but I'm like, rainbow is my favorite color. So I want to have all the colors. And I have horrible handwriting. I definitely should have been a doctor. Like if that stereotype is true, I got a C+. I remember I got a C+ in handwriting in the 4th grade. Like I didn't get C's like in any subject. Student, but I was like I wasn't like a bad student, but that crushed me. But I embraced it now. I just have bad handwriting. And the point of all this is that I think it's less about, it is important what you write, but it's also just the mechanics of the writing. And like for me, like choosing the colors and maybe even doodling and drawing lines and drawing arrows and connecting and stuff like that. That's like a piece of it that you don't get if you do it electronically. I do both just because for practical reasons, like if I'm in the car and I need to make a note, and I can talk into my phone and make a note or something like that, if I'm on the road or, on the go. But I think so to remember that pen to paper piece that I went, quote, paperless many, many, many years ago. 10 years ago, I decided I'm going to go paperless. And so I don't have a lot of paper in my house, but I do have a journal and I have my nice pen. So.
And that's very cool. And the fountain pen is like a very big thing right now, like having a really nice pen.
Yeah.
And yeah, there is something to that. And I love how it slows you down, because it does.
Yeah. I'm with Sumit there. I love the fountain pen. My father wrote with a fountain pen. He had immaculate handwriting, and as people did back in the day, and he really prided himself in that. So it's like it's like almost an art form, and I think that's a great way to connect the mind there. So, but
That's right. That's the right and the left brain working together. That's very cool. Well, I want to just see if I can, I want people to be asking themselves some questions. If you have like a blank journal, or if you just want to add in some questions in the journal that I have created, I always have a daily question for you, and you can always modify it for yourself. Like I have a question right here, which says, how does the season gift me with what I need for my well-being? And as a leader, I might ask, how do I model this? I might add a little something there, right? Just going back to the chat where I put the 5 qualities of an intuitive leader, being respectful is one of the qualities. And so you can ask yourself, how do I show up as being respectful? Like where do I not? Just to get a sense of who and what you are doing, be real with yourself, right? I think journaling can allow one to do that. And if there's anybody out there who thinks, oh, I can't journal because somebody will read it, okay, you can burn your journal, all right? I don't know, but you can do this and then let it go, okay? Change it into flame at some point if you really, or, shred it, whatever. But I want to just say that don't let that stop you. Being resilient is another quality. And we've talked about resilience and what areas are you strong in and where might you want to grow? So just to, again, this is like just looking at the bigger picture, being responsive as an intuitive leader. I like people being responsive. I don't know about you all, but when somebody doesn't respond, you're like, what kind of customer service, or what is that? And you disappear. So how do I show that I am responsive? How do you show, as a leader, how do you show that? And then reflection, or being reflective, is the fifth quality. Again, journaling is a key to this piece, but what have I learned from today? And that's what we started with, Sam. I think you were saying something about, the insights, or Wendy, one of you. There's a very important piece to what have you learned today? What have you learned that you want to continue? What have you learned you don't want to continue? Right? And I see, Shar, you're looking over to the side. So what are you thinking? I can tell you're thinking.
Gosh, yeah. Yeah, I'm looking at this side because I was thinking of my vice president, actually the one that I was kind of talking about earlier. He says, what can I continue? What can I stop? That whole stoplight type of aspect. And it was the first time I ever saw that behavior, and I thought it was really genius as my leader, that he was open to my feedback and what could we learn from this together? Again, working
nice.
smarter, better together. He brought that practice in, which is very common sense. I think most of us have heard that process now, to be vulnerable, open to feedback, and what he could learn, and then what I could learn from being more assertive. So we do something called the TMA, which we're going to show you in a second. I am low in assertiveness, but I'm very high in tolerance. And sometimes being high in tolerance can have its drawbacks too.
Very interesting.
So those dialogues were helpful for me because he was helping me be more assertive, and I was trying to help him be more tolerant.
Got it.
So that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. And, there's something about boundaries that we want to keep coming back to. When you're journaling, you're also starting to notice, I believe, at least for me, that I start to see, okay, what's some action that I might want to take regarding a situation, which allows then the leader to also say, whoa, that didn't work for me. And then saying it in a way that's respectful. And then also, right. Or whether it's at home or in the workplace, wherever it is. But I think that's very important that we're also starting to see what we need and want ourselves, and what might also be important for us as leaders, and what we need and want as well.
And having the psychological safety to talk about it, that's key.
That's right.
That's correct. So yes, you do have to have some safety and have built up some trust. That's correct. Absolutely. So that's a very important.
And if you can't talk about it, write it down.
Yeah.
See, look at you, right? There's a journal again.
That's
yeah.
right.
And Sam, the Forbes article that you shared in your LinkedIn page, I think that was really helpful, because I think some of those questions that, what's the gal's name? Henna Inam, she presented, I'm actually having somebody ringing my doorbell, and I'm not exactly sure what's going on.
Sorry, why don't you take a break? We have to close up anyway. And so
okay.
I have to go and bring our next week's speaker up, and you can go and see who's at the door. All right.
Late trick-or-treaters.
That's right.
I have a whole bag of I have 5 bags of candy there.
So anyway, I want to bring attention to our listeners out there of our next week's speaker. We have Sophie Jenke that's going to be joining us, and we're going to talk about enhancing employee well-being and during this time. So and becoming those change champions. Now we're coming towards the end of the year, which a lot of us are celebrating, and then also some people are having a bit of a hard time. So it's the end of the year is different for some people, as they reflect on those things that happened in their life in the past, or loved ones they've lost, and so forth. And so I think part of the important thing is how do we really become aware of our employees and their well-being, and helping being change champions, and that in our organizations to help our managers develop and be more intuitive of their people. So more to hear about this next week with Sophie. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's cool. She sounds wonderful.
Yeah. So Karin, I know we have just a few more minutes. Just love to close here and see how people can get a hold of you or learn more about where to purchase your journals.
Sure. So I'm going to put in the chat box. It says drkarinlubin.com, and it says journaling hyphen bundle. You can see that there's two different kinds of journals that I have. There are two sets. You can get 1 out of 4. You don't have to get them all, but it just shows you very specifically what the journals are and what each journal kind of focuses on. They each have themes. And then I also wanted to just give everyone, if I may, this journal resource guide. And Sam, I don't know if you want to have it on your website as something that you give to people, or if they go to your website. How would you like to do that?
Sure, you can just send it to my way, and I'll go ahead and post it on the chat and so forth when we on our social media as well, if that's okay.
I would love to do that, because basically it sets a structure. It gives you very specifically things for you to do, like find a time of the day that you're always going to journal, right? Set up the time. For me, it's always in the morning, right? Maybe you do it next to a window and you can look outside, or maybe you do it outside, wherever you live, right? So it just depends. Maybe it's in a place where you light a candle because it's so dark. I don't know. So whatever you do, make it kind of a ritual or a habit, right? An effective habit for yourself. You're gonna then, you can do any other things with it, but there's this little resource guide is gonna help you set up a structure. And then you can even decide if you want the blank journal, which I find myself going in too many places and I get all distracted. So I like short and sweet and to the point. That's me. Okay. So not everyone's like that. But this gives you, in this resource guide, Sam, a little more of a structure so people can just go, bullet to bullet to bullet, and then have a structure to start a journaling practice, because I do believe it's so important as a leader, as an individual, to be clear about what you need and what you want and how you can do the best, for your group, for your team, for your organization. We got to keep doing that beautiful internal reflection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Sam.
Yes.
And everybody.
Thank you once again, Karin. Wonderful conversation. I look forward to just sharing that link with everyone. And thank you once again, Karin, for joining us on the People Strategy Forum.
It is my pleasure. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
Nice to
have
see
a
you.
wonderful week, and we'll see you next week. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank
Keep-
you.
Keep on
Bye.
journaling.